Honestly, in the first book that I wrote, every character who died was a surprise to me.
No, those are the worst when you have to kill off a character. That is not fun. But you know what I love though? That you say that all of them were surprises because then the feeling is real, what you're writing, and you're like, what?
Yes, it's the best feeling when you make yourself laugh or cry.
Gosh, and I can't wait for our last episode of the season because we'll be talking about our own novels. And oh my gosh, there's always this one like line that gets me every time.
Oh, we're definitely reading that line. Put it in the script for doing it.
But you know what I'm more excited about? I tend to be very more excited about when we have special guests on.
You are always excited about guests. Yes.
More people to talk to. But yeah, no, I'm very excited about today's episode because it is our final author spotlight for this season.
Oh, such a bittersweet moment.
I know, right? So are you ready to get into it?
I am. I have my mango today, mango latte.
I like your cup. I have a passion fruit and cranberry tea today. It smells delicious. It smells like I'm about to drink like an iced tea. I know. Okay, let's try this. It's not bad. It's not bad. It is a tad fruity, which always surprises me because generally when you have flavored teas, they just taste like, I don't know, Earl Grey or something. I can work with this.
I love fruity teas.
Alrighty, let's do this. Hello everyone and welcome to Tea and Tales. I'm Madeline, I know.
And I'm Sarah Sampson. Thank you all for watching, tuning in, listening, especially Marlis Manley Broadhead and Theodora Insulaco. Today's episode is an author spotlight. Our guest today is self-published author Justine Brashear.
Welcome, Justine. I'm super excited to have you on here, and especially since I met you in our writers group, the same one that I met Sarah at. And I actually was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, how did we actually start talking to each other? And I think it's because we swapped pages, correct?
We did. Yeah.
Yes. Then you just tumbled forward and decided to just self-publish. And I was like, first of all, rude. But second of all, it's quite amazing. I'm always in awe of people who do take that extra step to self-publish because, you see, I do want to go to the traditional route. So first of all, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I just recently moved to the beach in Southern California. It's kind of a new chapter in my life. My kids are all out of the house. And I'm single and just creating this life that lights me up. And this is a huge part of that, being a published author and having put my heart and soul into this book and then putting it out there.
I know you're not a fantasy writer like me or a romance writer like Nell. So what genre have we pulled in today?
So my genre has been sort of difficult for me to pin down. A while ago, I settled on women's fiction. I've never really felt comfortable with it being women's fiction because it's pretty steamy and explicit. And so I started referring to it as steamy women's fiction. And then I had a lot of writers tell me that there was no such thing as steamy women's fiction. And so then I felt like this sort of lost child without a home. So I started calling it contemporary fiction. I think it does fall nicely within contemporary fiction. And even though new adult, I suppose, also isn't really considered a genre, I consider it new adult because my character is, in her mid-20s and she's sort of coming into herself, and you can't really call it a coming of age because she's 24 or 25 in the book. So I think it fits nicely within contemporary fiction / new.
A lot of times when I'm in writers groups with new writers, that's one of the things they waffle over a lot is, what is my genre? What resources did you use to pin down what genre you feel like you actually are?
I spent hours Googling, for one thing. It would come back with romance. or erotic romance or erotica. I didn't fit within that category because they weren't written with the intention to, titillate and arouse people, right? Like erotica is. Not really a romance genre, even though there's a lot of romance in the book and there's a very strong romantic arc. It doesn't follow the typical romance genre beats. Then I started going out into writers groups on the Facebook groups and the publishing group that I was in. And I would put it out there. It took a long time, a couple of years for me to really get comfortable with my genre. Constant evaluating and questioning if I'm in the right genre.
I feel like new adult especially is difficult because it's such a new genre that it's still being defined. It's basically just another age group that's being created.
It's exhausting. It's exhausting trying to pinpoint down the genre.
With genre, though, it's most important to feel like you're comfortable in what you're calling it, and being able to adjust if you discover you're wrong. You do the research and you have to learn. You have to become a scholar of the industry to sell books.
That's right.
So I did have the privilege of being one of your beta readers. It's actually been quite a journey myself to see where you started with your story and how you changed it and developed it. Naturally, as a reader that enjoyed reading your novel, when's your next book coming out? What are you working on next? And it's one of those love-hate questions authors have, because some have 20 ideas, others have like, I am gonna sit here until an idea forms in my head.
So I am kind of the latter of what you just said. I am the type of writer where I just have to focus on one story at a time. So when I started writing this book, We Close Our Eyes, it was with the intention that it would be a series, like a 3-part trilogy. I ended up changing the ending kind of at the last minute in a way that I'm not sure how I would continue the series. That's something I'm sitting with. Am I going to expand on this and continue to tell Emily's journey? Or maybe I just want to go do something completely different. Maybe I do want to write romance. Maybe I want to write paranormal fantasy. I don't know, because one of my favorite authors is Anne Rice. The Vampire Chronicles, my favorite all-time books. Mayfair Witches, I love all of that. And that's not what I've been writing. So I kind of play with, maybe I want to go explore that. I am at the point where I really need to choose which direction I'm going to go in and then buckle down and do that, because my book has now been out for 6 months. I think that it's a good standalone book. Like, it can be read and be one and done and that's it. And I think that it also, I do have people asking me, well, when is the next book about Emily coming out? So I don't know. I'm sorry. That's a very long way of saying I don't know.
Yeah, it's the frustrating part, because readers read your book in a day. You spend months trying to write a novel.
No, you spend months. I spend years. It took me 6 years to write this book and get it to a place where I felt comfortable putting it out into the world. Hopefully, I think I learned the craft of writing in this book, thanks in large part to you. Like, I had probably at least 100 beta readers, and they were amazing beta readers. But you now definitely like the number one top beta reader who helped me the most. It would not be what it is today without all of the beta readers that contributed their thoughts and opinions on it. And it was brutal. I mean, especially from that very first draft that I put out there. Oh, I got shredded. It was brutal. But I needed to you have to take a deep breath and let it go. And it's not personal. And I need this because I don't want to put out a mediocre piece of work. I really want to put out the best version of what I can. And I think the best way to do that is to have beta readers, and a lot of beta readers. I know some people like to just do 3 or 4 beta readers. I'm of the opinion that you should get a large sampling.
So don't we just learn something new from every different beta reader?
Yes.
I have one beta reader who will just focus on the craft and another beta reader who focuses on the characters. And it's nice to have that mix because you get a bigger picture.
You said your first draft you sent out and you got brutally attacked for that. And I know you were at a point in your life where you were like, I just want to be done with this book. That's exactly where I am right now, where I'm like, I just want to start querying now, because you've spent so much time on it and been brutally attacked by feedback. Your poor heart had to overcome that. And that's another thing in this industry, is that you really have to have a thick skin. They are actually trying to help you, but because it's your novel, because it's your characters, because it's your babies, everything someone will say about them will feel offensive. And especially since you are a self-published author, Because yes, some self-published authors do get editors and they do have people to look over it. I don't think you had an editor, did you?
I did not have an editor, mostly because I just couldn't afford it. And I also knew that editing is like the most important step before putting out a book. So I really relied on the kindness and generosity of my beta readers who were reading this book over the course of, I think it was a 2 or 3 year period, to catch those grammatical errors or those really weird structured sentences or all the exclamation points. And it got to a point where the feedback I started getting was, wow, this is a really clean manuscript. And so at that point was when I started to feel like, okay, so maybe it is now at the point where it's okay to like actually publish.
I feel like it's that brutalness that sometimes stops people in their author journey, because you go through it with your first baby that you pour everything into, and then to realize you need to write another one and go through it all over again. How do you push through that and stay motivated to, one, finish the one that you have, and two, to come up with another idea and work for your next book?
I say this book took me 6 years to write, and that's because there was a lot of time when I stopped writing. I remember I wrote the book and I wrote it in less than a year, right? The very first draft. It was just a few months. And I was so excited and I put it out there and I passed it off to the beta readers. And that was when it got shredded. And I was like, well, screw this. Because it's my first book and they say write what you know. Of course, Emily, the main character, her thoughts and her emotions are a lot based off of me. And I kept hearing feedback of, well, Emily's not very likable. I took that as, well, people must not like me because that's, I've put myself into this character. I would stop writing. And the best thing that I read was from that Stephen King book on writing, right? And he talked about putting your manuscript away for a few weeks. I would put it away and I would come back to it and I would see it with fresh eyes. And then I would also see the beta readers' feedback with fresh eyes, because now I was further removed away from it, or I wasn't just reacting and taking it personally. So I was able to really process their feedback. The other thing is, in between all of this, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. And so a year of my life was I was going through breast cancer treatment, through the chemo and the radiation. And I had all this brain fog and I literally couldn't write. I couldn't even read to comprehend anything. Like my brain was just foggy. So I was sort of forced to take a year off from writing. And when I came back to it, I'm all healthy now and my hair grew back. So, when I came back to it with a clear head, and now like literally a year had gone by, I was really able to see all of the possibilities. So much opened up for me for my book. And that was exciting. And that's what motivated me then to keep going, because it almost at that point felt to me like I was writing a new book.
I love how you talk about when you initially read your beta readers' feedback, you felt like a train just ran over you. And then after initially taking time off, then you came back. And that is actually something that I have decided that works for me. Once someone gives me some beta reading, I will look at it on my phone. And then I will get all depressed about how terrible these comments are. And then I will take it all to heart. And then I will cry while I lie in my bed reading all these notes. And then I'm like, I will never write in my life again. And then the next morning, then I go onto my laptop. And then I open the document. And then I see it with fresh eyes. And I'm like, oh, wait, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. Especially happened with yours.
I think, was I not like your very first beta reader? Because I think I remember you telling me I was the first person who read your work. I loved your book, but I was like giving feedback in the way that I would want feedback. I could tell that you were pissed. I'm like, she's never going to talk to me again. She's never going to let me read anything again. So, but thank God you came back to me. And
I just had a moment, okay? I had a moment.
I totally get it.
You want so badly for them to say, oh, this is beautiful and perfect, though in your heart you know it's not. But when you hear why it's not, you just go, I'm a failure.
Exactly. We make it so personal.
I absolutely love your title because you say it is based off of a song that you like.
I'm giving away my age here, but my favorite song, and cool was We Close Our Eyes by Oingo Boingo in 1987. I was 17 years old. And I loved that song because the lyrics just really resonated with me. So I really felt like the themes of that song really connected to the themes of what I was hoping to write and want to put out there. We go through life and we do things, and some things are good and some things are bad, and we grow as a result of, and then we close our eyes and the world is turned around again. And now it's something new.
Don't you have like a book with you?
I do have a book with me. I have my book in paperback and in hardback.
And just look at how pretty
Ooh.
that cover is.
Thank you.
I love
And you
it.
just released in April 3rd of 2024.
Right.
So this is all a new process. Like you just finished it and still catching your breath from this.
I was so hyped from that. I had a book launch party. I wanted to transition my personal TikTok to more of an author TikTok. So I created a new TikTok for that. And so now I'm rebuilding that. And I was really on like a roll with that for that month, right? Or a couple months. And then I had to move, and I got really caught up in the move, and I moved my mother out from Las Vegas out with me. And so there was just a lot of my world just got interrupted with that for a couple of months. And so now, 5 or 6 months later that I'm back, to start to promote it more and to get back into that whole marketing of it. But yeah, so the thought of like starting another book when I'm like, but I need to market this book.
Yeah, people don't understand how much time and effort goes into doing social media. And I think on the one hand, I want to say like, yeah, traditional publishing, the publishers do it for you. No, you also kind of have to do the marketing yourself. But self-publishing is like just literally you have to do everything yourself.
And that's kind of why, I mean, just going back to why I chose self-publishing over traditional publishing, because I kept reading how much the traditional publishing world has changed and that they now expect their writers to really do most of their own marketing. And so when I was like, well, if I'm going to have to do my own marketing anyway, I'm too impatient to wait around for the traditional publishers, like it's a long process and very admirable.
I've done a lot of research on individually published and got overwhelmed and backed off. And I was like, I would rather wait for the traditional publisher because there's so many resources and so many ideas of what resources to use. And I just was like, I don't want to use the wrong one and end up with a bad outcome. What resources did you pick to do your self-publishing?
Yeah, so right before I was ready to publish, I got the Atticus software, and I highly recommend that for anyone. The formatting was just so simple. I just kind of chose the style that I wanted, and then it was there. I had hired a cover designer, so I got some samples from them of what they would do for me, but I grew attached to the one that I designed, and I used Canva Pro for that. I would, take things like that out to the Facebook groups and be like, this cover or this cover, the designer or mine. And actually mine, people chose mine, and which I was thrilled about because that's the one that resonated more with me about who Emily was. And KDP Direct on Amazon is how I got it up there. And then also through Ingram Sparks. So like this hardcover comes from Ingram Sparks. This is not available on Amazon. If you order a hardcover on Amazon, they send you, I think it's a pressed board book. I don't know how to get around that. But this one I really love with the dust jacket.
I feel like we keep saying writers groups network, no matter what path you're going on. Have you found that your feedback from authors of different genres is useful or as useful as feedback from authors that write your own genre?
I actually wrestled with this whole thing because in the group that we were all in together, I know that was their big thing, was to have people from other genres read your pages. And at first I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That's really great. And then they would read my pages and I felt like they weren't necessarily getting what I was trying to say, or they just had a very different writing style from what I had. And so they wanted to rewrite my pages in their writing style. But the other hand, I think that it infused a different level of perspective to my pages, right? Certainly having romance readers read my pages, even though I'm not in the romance genre, helped tremendously. They would read it and they would see romance and they're like, but that is not what happens in romance. And I'm like, but this isn't a romance genre. But it certainly gave me like, oh, but I do want to hook the reader in
I took a course a while ago with a guy who talked about how the stories that make the strongest impact usually combine 2 or 3 different genres. You have your main genre, and then they bring in elements from 2 other genres. If you're not completely versed in that other genre, it can be difficult to roll it in properly, but you get people who are like, edit the romance in my contemporary novel, please. And you're going to get that perspective to be able to pull it off properly.
That's great, though, to hear that he said. I really like hearing that. I read so many different genres, and then they all sort of influence my writing style. So when people are like, what's your favorite genre? I'm like, well, I don't really have just one, because I'll go from nonfiction to fantasy to paranormal to romance to, some travel book. One of my favorite books is A Year in Provence by Peter Mile. And that's like a nonfiction, they moved to France and bought a castle, and it's like their life. So it's just a lot of different writing styles that you find in those different genres.
I feel like I may be ready to become a more rounded reader like you are, just because I read so much in my writers groups that aren't my genre. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe I do like this genre, and I just didn't give it a fair enough chance.
I
I
have a
always
book
think
you can read. I'm
That one.
kidding.
I need to start with that one. Yes. I need to read all the books from our guests.
I know. I'm sure you have a pile.
yes, I mean, I have an excuse. They don't come to South Africa, so I don't know what to do with that. No, you just have to come and visit me in South Africa. That's what
I
you have
know.
to
I
do, and
still
then
want
bring
to.
your book.
That would
Oh,
be an
yeah.
amazing trip.
Right? Exactly. I'll
Yes.
feed you wine and food.
Thank you. Perfect.
Thank you, Justine, for visiting with us on Tea and Tales today. I thoroughly enjoyed learning more about your processes and your book.
Thank you so much for having me. This is like such a treat and so much fun. So thank you.
And if they want to
Oh,
find you, where can they find you?
So my website is justinebrashear.com. I'm on TikTok under author Justine Brashear, Instagram, I think it's Justine Brashear author, and Facebook, author Justine Brashear. So just Google my name.
and we will put those links also in the description of this episode.
Awesome. Thank you.
We want to keep things short and simple here on Tea and Tales. Get your fingers back on the keyboard and your pens back on the paper.
And if you love what we are doing here, and if you love all the guests that we have on the show and want to see more, go follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Tea and Tales Podcast, or go to Twitter/X or TikTok at Podcast Tea Tales. And especially go to that purple icon on your device and go give us 5 stars and go tell us how much you love us and what authors and what people you would love to have on our podcast.
Thanks for joining us. Happy writing.
Bye!